Heat illness can affect anyone who is exposed to extreme heat for a prolonged period of time. As we know, heat is a hazard, and as with all hazards, we always look to eliminate or reduce the associated risks. Unfortunately, when we're working outside in extreme heat, we can't just turn down the heat to straight out eliminate the risk of heat illness. So, what is there to do about heat illness? Prevent it. Hi, I'm Surgeon with Arthur and Hansen, and this is part 2 of our heat illness prevention series. This video will cover the 4 elements of preventing heat illness. Okay, so how do we prevent heat illness? Like I said, there's 4 elements key to preventing heat illness in the workplace. These 4 elements must be made available by your employer. The 4 elements are water, shade, written procedures, and training. It may seem simple, right? Drink water when you're thirsty, find some shade when you're hot, and get help if someone is experiencing heat illness. But there are certain factors and procedures we need to execute to ensure we have the resources available for everyone to do just that while on the job. So, let's start with the first element, water. There should be access to clean drinking water meeting the following standards. OSHA requires that the water be fresh, potable, suitably cool, and provided to employees free of charge. The water should be located close to the worksite. But of course, areas where it may become contaminated should be avoided. Now, if the supplied water is plumbed or continuous, such as a water fountain, you don't have to worry about having enough water for everyone on the site. But if that isn't the case, enough water needs to be supplied at the beginning of the work shift so that everyone can drink up to 1 quart of water per hour during their shift. Another way to look at it is to make sure that there's enough water for each person to drink at least 2 gallons every 8 hours of work. So, if there are 10 employees at the worksite, and everyone's working 8-hour days, at least 20 gallons of water needs to be available. It's important that we encourage everyone on site to drink a little bit of water all the time. Don't wait until you're actually thirsty to drink water. It's your right to drink water whenever you need it. Now let's move on to the second element of prevention, shade. Shade, by definition, is a direct blockage of sun rays. One way to check if the shade at your worksite is adequate is to ensure your body does not cast a shadow in the area of blocked sunlight. If you see your shadow, the shade just isn't shady enough. Shade is also not adequate if the heat in the shaded area defeats the purpose of shade, which is to allow the body to cool. For example, a car sitting in the sun does not provide acceptable shade to the person inside, unless the car is running with air conditioning. So it's not just about directly blocking the sunlight, but also about allowing your body to cool down. There are some other factors we need to consider, such as when the shade needs to be present, where shade needs to be located, and how much shade needs to be available. Shade must be present at the workplace when the temperature exceeds 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and it must be open to the air or provided with ventilation or cooling. However, shade should also be provided in a timely manner whenever an employee requests it, no matter what the temperature is outside. The amount of shade present must be at least enough to accommodate the number of employees on break or rest periods, so that they can sit in a normal posture, fully in the shade without having to physically contact one another. The shade should also cover at least 25% of the crew at one time. So, if you have 40 workers in a crew, for example, the shade must be sufficient to accommodate 10 people. The shade should also be located as close as possible to the areas where employees are working. Usually this means that the shade should be within 2.5 minutes of walking, but no further than a 5-minute walk or a quarter mile. Alright, so let's move on to element number 3, which is written procedures. These written procedures identify employees' responsibilities for particular tasks, describe procedures for tracking weather, providing sufficient shade and water, etc. Think of these procedures as helpful checklists that assign tasks amongst the crew to make sure that nothing is forgotten on site. It will also include high heat procedures and emergency procedures. These written procedures will be covered in the last video of this series, so stay tuned for that. And finally, the last element of prevention is training. All employees exposed to heat illness must be trained in the procedures for prevention of heat illnesses caused by heat, the importance of drinking water frequently and in small quantities, the different types of illnesses caused by heat, and common signs and symptoms of these illnesses, and on information such as contacts and procedures in case of an emergency. We hope this video has helped you gain a better understanding of how to prevent heat illness from occurring by implementing the 4 elements we just covered. Stay tuned for the next video of this series. As promised, we're going to cover the written procedure elements in more depth. Be sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed the content. Subscribe so you don't miss out on any more videos like this, and comment down below what topics you would like for us to cover next. Feel free to contact us using the information provided below if you have any questions or need assistance with your heat illness prevention program or your safety program as a whole. You can also follow us on all social media platforms to stay updated with our latest safety tips and tricks. And as always, until next time, be safe and thank you.